Hello everyone, welcome to our Coromon review after 50 hours of playing the game. If you've been on the channel, you know that I've really enjoyed my playthrough so far, but the question you might be asking yourself is, should you play Coromon? If you're excited for more Coromon and monster catching content, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Let's just address the elephant in the room from the jump. Coromon, Pokemon, they sound the same, they kind of look the same, and the reason why is because Coromon is heavily inspired by Pokemon. In a lot of ways, it improves upon a lot of the mechanics that we saw in the 3rd through 5th gens, and even in games that we're seeing like Sword and Shield and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Even though it's inspired by Pokemon, it's also heavily inspired by Legend of Zelda, and that's one key point I want to address, is that there are a lot of puzzles in the game that make it really interesting, especially for a monster catching game. So if you are someone who loves monster catching games, monster taming games, Pokemon games, but you also like puzzles, brain teasers, and not just the straight linear, I catch a Pokemon or Coromon, I defeat a gym leader or a Titan, but you want something in between to help space out your adventure, I highly recommend checking the game out because the puzzles in a lot of ways were challenging for me, but in a really good way, in a way that broke the game up and was a central feature, not just something that was slapped on there. There was one puzzle in particular at Power Tower, which if you've seen my playthrough, you know I really struggled with it, but in a good way. It was a struggle that I haven't experienced in games like Pokemon or Digimon. It was more of a cerebral challenge that allowed me to progress in the game, and it really, again, broke up what I was trying to do. Instead of just beelining to a gym or a Titan, I was able to go through puzzles, think through those, and it felt rewarding once I got past that and unlocked the next level or the next area in a map. The flip side to that is, if you play Legend of Zelda or other games and the puzzles really weren't your thing, you may not enjoy that aspect of Coromon. It's, again, not super featured, but before each boss fight, you will have some kind of puzzle or brain teaser you have to go through. They vary in difficulty, some of them are pretty easy to get through and straightforward, some of them require some more thinking and strategy, but again, it's a cool feature for a monster catching game, and if you do enjoy puzzles and you do enjoy monster catching, I think you'll really enjoy Coromon. With that being said, the game mechanics are really awesome. It's turn-based, which I really enjoy. All the animations are really smooth. It never felt like it was lazy when you're looking at your Coromon, whether they're taking a hit, whether they're dealing out damage or being returned to their spinner. Even the spinners were cool. All of the different cries and animations for the Coromon were really well thought out, which I really appreciated, especially coming from games like Pokemon where that can be lacking at times. And my same love for the game mechanics in battle also transitioned to the overworld, where you have a thing called a gauntlet, where you're able to push items aside, you can burn some items, you can also bring tremors out, which is awesome. So overall, just really cool game mechanics, really fun, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays on mobile and Switch. I played on PC, but I imagine the smoothness of game mechanics and the fluidness of them are going to transfer to mobile and Switch, and I think the game will look really awesome on both of those two consoles. Coromon is a 2D pixel art game that looks amazing. I think it looks so great. All of the levels, all of the towns, the routes, all of the Coromon, you can tell they're really thought out, which I appreciate. The one thing that I will note is I played it on PC, and I was playing on a 32-inch monitor that's 1440p, and it seemed like it was a little stretched for that kind of monitor. So if you are playing it on PC, maybe don't play it in full screen mode. I did that because I was streaming, but if I weren't streaming, I would likely play it on a smaller screen. I think it's going to translate really well to mobile and Switch because of that though. As of now, we don't have definitive release dates for the Switch and mobile versions. Likely the Switch version will be out first, hopefully at the beginning of summer, and then mobile will be out hopefully soon after that. And while I adore the 2D pixel art and kind of flat world that you get to play in, if you're someone who really enjoys open world games and hyper realistic graphics, this probably just won't be the game for you unless you want to set that aside. The charm of this game really comes from its pixel art and its world that fits in that kind of art style. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this game is heavily inspired by Pokemon, and in my opinion really takes from probably like the 3rd through 5th gens of Pokemon and enhances those. So that's the art style you enjoy and you really miss that pixel art, I think you're really gonna like Coromon and should give it a try. Speaking of art and graphics and overall themes of the game, the Coromon designs are awesome. Some of the monsters in this game are my favorite in any monster catching game / taming game. Some that come to mind are Ecliptor, which I think are really cool. Dugtera was awesome, mainly because it saved me in my playthrough. and there are tons and tons of other Coromon in the game. I believe there's 114 Coromon, not including things like the Titans. So there's a good variety of Coromon in the game, and they all have very thoughtful designs with them as well, ranging from really cute to very ferocious and everything in between. And it's a lot of fun to find all the Coromon and build out your database as well. One key distinction between Coromon and something like Pokemon is their shiny system. So while Coromon has really great designs, I really like the shiny system. In the game you have a potency score, so Coromon can be standard, potent, or perfect, and each one of those designations has a different color scheme for the Coromon. So if you're someone who likes to do shiny hunting and things of that nature, you'll really enjoy Coromon for that reason, and be rewarded with stronger Coromon who have higher potency and potential for competitive play and for your in-game play as well. One larger criticism that I have about the game is that even for monster catching game standards, the story's pretty lackluster. There's not a huge payoff for what you go through. This game is definitely about the journey and not the end destination. So if you are someone who's expecting a very story-rich game with a lot of player development and a lot of twists and turns with your narrative, you probably just won't get that from Coromon. Doesn't make it a bad game by any stretch. It's really great at what it does, and the focus of this game is not on the story and narrative. It's about how you play the game. It's in a lot of ways, love letter to some of the more throwback monster catching games and pixel art games. So if you know that going into it and you're okay not having a very rich story, I think you'll really enjoy Coromon and what it has to offer. And even though you don't get a really rich story by playing this game, what you do get is a lot of challenge, be it the puzzles, or more importantly, the monster battles that you do go through. There were multiple times in my playthrough where I thought my team was pretty well leveled, and I ended up losing to just random trainers, not even boss fights or major trainers. Just random trainers in the forest or getting to the next level, which I actually really enjoyed. I also felt like I couldn't just buy a bunch of healing items and power through. It really took a lot of strategy with my team, a lot of synergy, and a lot of luck sometimes to get through some of those battles, which was a nice change of pace. As someone who plays a lot of monster taming games, it feels like you're just on autopilot a lot of times, and I always felt like I was on my toes playing through Coromon. One thing that helped keep the game fresh and challenging was the diversity of Coromon you'd see in different areas of the map or game. For example, in the water area, you would typically expect to see mostly water type Coromon, but there were a good amount of electric, even ghosts, some normal type, and that kept me on my toes. I couldn't just take one type of Coromon and just jump through or run through an area. It required some strategy. It required me to be really thoughtful about the Coromon that I was using, which I really appreciated. I feel like in a lot of monster taming games and catching games, you're kind of on autopilot, or you can buy enough resources where it doesn't really matter. But in Coromon, I always felt broke, which was a good reminder of my everyday life. And it really kept the challenge up throughout the game and required me to think and not just kind of brute force my way through the game and the bosses and the trainers. I should also mention that I played the game on medium, and there are different difficulty settings, ranging from easy, which I believe make Coromon lower level that you're going up against and gives you more money and resources, all the way up to hard or insane, which is a built-in Nuzlocke mode, which I think is awesome. And the cool thing is you can go in between the difficulty levels, so if you start on medium and you're like, I want to Nuzlocke a little bit, you can do that, and then you can go back to medium if you need to. So I really enjoyed that and thought that was a really cool feature that I don't see in a lot of monster catching games, having a built-in Nuzlocke, especially for those who really enjoy that aspect and that way of playing through these games. And while the game was challenging, I will note that it was a little short, and that's good and bad. It's really great for replay value, especially like I mentioned, if you do play on medium or easy and then want to up the difficulty or Nuzlocke, it makes it really replayable. But at the same time, if it's your first playthrough, it can feel kind of hollow at the end once you get there, because it feels like you're building up to something big and then it kind of ends in some ways. But overall, the story was satisfactory, a little short, but I think was good in the sense that it allows you to replay the game easier without spending like hours and hours and hours playing through the game. I'd say it's roughly 20 to 25 at most. You can probably beat it in less, honestly. I think I did a lot of grinding. I'm also bad at puzzles, so that added a lot of time to my playthrough. But overall, I'd say it's between probably 15 to like 22 hours, give or take, which isn't bad at all. You can also, like I mentioned, hopefully play it on mobile and Switch soon. And I really think these are going to be great mobile and Switch games. So just as a heads up, if you are thinking about picking the game up, you may want to keep an eye on the Switch and mobile releases, because I think it's going to be fantastic to play on both of those two platforms. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a few other things. One thing, I think the characters are pretty diverse. You can customize your character in the beginning, making them look very young, or as some people pointed out about my character, very old. I think the text and dialogue is really witty and smart. It's really self-aware, humor throughout the game, which I really enjoyed as well. And the level design is very unique. Each area I think is really beautiful, from the design of the area, to the type of Coromon you see, to the puzzles you see in the area, to the music that they use. You can tell the people who developed this game really cared about it. It was a passion project for them, and it turned out really well. So if you enjoyed those little things like level design, puzzle design, music, and scores, I think you'll enjoy Coromon for what it is. It's a shorter game, it's an indie game as well, which in this case means it's relatively affordable. Right now I think it's $15 on Steam, it's on sale. I'm not sure about the Switch and mobile prices, but probably less than a Digimon or Pokemon game when they first release. So that kind of helps too, that's a plus on its side. It'll be a little bit cheaper than some of those games. But it does truly feel like a fully fleshed out game, even though it's a little bit cheaper, even though it is an indie game. It feels like a full experience, which is why I'm really excited about the Switch version and the mobile version as well, because you're getting a lot of value through this game, especially on those two platforms. So we spent about 10-11 minutes talking about Coromon, and the question we asked at the beginning is, should you play Coromon? I hope we've given you enough to answer the question. I think you should give it a try, especially if you like Pokemon, Digimon, other monster catching games. If you enjoy indie games, pixel art, and passion projects turning out well, I think you'll enjoy this. If you're more interested in story, open world development, maybe player progression, things like that, maybe not the game for you, but let me know down below what you think about the review and Coromon. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe for more Coromon and other monster catching content.